Much appreciated. So I am the founder of Blue IoT, and blue really is like the new green, the blue economy. It's a circular economy, and all we're doing is leveraging the Internet of Things to support a blue and sustainable economy. So let's go forward. I have very limited time, so I'll do my very best. So in my short space of time, we'll go through this framework, but I don't have too many slides. So please send in your questions on the chat or email me directly, as I won't be able to do a Q&A later on, but I'd love to answer your questions that you have anytime afterwards. So what's the framework to build a better triple bottom line? And I believe it's got to be sustainable across that triple bottom line. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to make it work. So we need to make the auditors happy. We need to make the sustainability managers happy, the CFOs happy, and the COOs happy. And this is the ultimate where we can make everyone happy in delivering amazing outcomes for all of us, for our planet, for our communities, and for our businesses. And so what we need to do in the built environment, which is your buildings, your places, shopping centers, hotels, office buildings, residential buildings, etc. How can we make them more efficient? How can we do that in a way that says we can preserve the equipment that we have and not just replace it, because it takes a lot of carbon footprint to replace equipment? How can we rather not get rid of it so early, keep it for another 10 years, and still get an amazing reduction in emissions and improved human outcomes? So this is the thing. But initially, we need to get data. And BMS here, some of you are probably wondering what that is. Building management systems. These are the systems that control the buildings, the lighting, the energy, the air conditioning and heating systems, and so forth. And so what we need to do is look at this data, and therefore we can then analyze it and then come up with something. So ESG, suppliers, policies, that's a discussion in itself. But basically what we're looking for is governance, sustainability, and how we measure all of these things and deliver it. So let's start here with cybersecurity. And we've just seen what's happened at Optus only last week, and that was pretty messy. To a lesser extent, Telstra also, and it's only going to get worse as we digitize buildings and get into the built environment. We're going to see a lot more of this happening within the space of buildings themselves and places. And so we can see there's a famous case called the fish tank at a casino in America. And there was a temperature sensor above the fish tank, and a hacker got in, and kaboom, data was sent out, and all sorts of problems happened. There's also another famous case. Why is this going? There we go. With Target USA, where a hacker got in through another wireless temperature sensor and broke into the corporate network from the building network and stole credit card details. That was a very expensive lesson. I think it might have been $100 million lesson in that regard. And there's also been cities in Europe, and I think in the Nordic regions too, Iran, where cities were shut for an hour or 2 hours due to a hacker breaking in to the energy systems. So I think now it's something we need to take much greater care of, and this is all part of sustainability and continuity of running our communities. And so without this, we're going to have a major problem. But what about standards? There are standards all over the world. What do we use? So you have design standards, like in Australia, Green Star. In Singapore, we've got Green Mark, and we've got LEED, we've got BREEAM. There's a whole bunch of them. and then their design standards. What about operational standards? Operational standards of buildings, there actually really aren't any to the extent that NABERS in Australia is. And NABERS is an acronym for the National Australian Built Environment Rating System. It's been around, developed by the New South Wales Department of Environment and Heritage, as it was formerly known. It's fantastic because it talks about the last 12 months of environmental outcome for energy, for water use, also for indoor air quality, waste. There's a whole lot of things. So as a NABERS auditor myself, I think it's absolutely brilliant. It has gone to the UK already. And the higher the NABERS rating, the much higher the asset value of the building. In fact, from 4 to 5 stars, you're looking at about 6 or 7% increase, which is quite substantial. So there's a good economic benefit in making your building much more sustainable. And the return on investment, it can be absolutely massively low too. That's another discussion. So here we have a common scenario of buildings with all the components that can go into it. And what we suggest in order to maximize sustainability, because there's a lot of talk about how, but what we're trying to do is maximize the reduction in carbon emissions. And therefore, when we do that, when we are using renewable power, not if, then we don't need as much. It becomes a lot easier. And then hopefully it becomes easier to use more locally sourced renewable power. So when we get solar windows, for example, because there's not enough room on a roof of a building, we're going to get much more locally sourced renewable power. Will be much more efficient in how we use it within the building space. So by having one pane of glass and not a bunch of disparate systems, it becomes easier to manage these facilities and places. And then we run into open platform type building management systems rather than proprietary systems. We ensure that we're able to predict, in most cases, before things fail. Again, reducing your carbon emissions because you don't wait for things to break down. And then what we're able to do then is add all sorts of things and have a system on one where we can look at leak detection, flood detection, whatever. So we're really improving the livability and sustainability of a building, a facility or residential building and so forth. So it's all about being able to integrate into all sorts of platforms and be open where we have both data sovereignty and data ownership by the customer. So for example, as part of ESG, reporting and governance is a critical factor. So what we need to be able to do is measure everything, test and measure, and make sure that we're able to come up with the appropriate reporting, but we need to be measuring everything because we can't manage what we don't know. So it is absolutely fundamental that we're measuring all the data points as we go. And with that, in real time, we can determine spikes, problems, and attend to them and not wait for another month to say, oh, why was this so high? What is the problem here? And so what we need to do is really, really make sure we're on top of everything from the beginning. Okay, so that comes with energy, but as part of good corporate governance and ESG and sustainability, what about human health and well-being? This has been overlooked for a long, long time. And to my shock and horror, I have visited a number of hospitals in recent times, and indoor air quality does not seem to be, it's not even on the radar, which I find quite disturbing, to say the least. And so what we need to do, and what is starting to happen, is that people are aware that if we have poor ventilation, and most buildings in some areas at least have poor ventilation, even brand new buildings. So we need to be measuring, what's happening with the CO2 levels within all parts of the building, and also volatile organic compounds, which is where you might pick up mold, dust, paints, and all sorts of things, and even in plastics that can cause harm. And so by measuring this, we can come up with where are the problem areas, can we remediate using the existing infrastructure? If not, let's work out some spot solutions, like some kind of air purification or ventilation in a simple method that won't cost an arm and a leg. And so that way we improve productivity. We don't have people falling asleep during meetings because there's too many people in the room. I'm sure it's never happened to anyone here on the forum. It's happened to me. This way we really improve productivity and health and well-being, and just people will be a lot happier because we're making sure that people are healthy. So, you know, health and well-being in our places of work, living and visiting is really imperative as part of the whole sustainability plan moving forward for all of us, I believe, and for a much more sustainable planet. So what do we need to do in order to sustain this? It's all about measure. Some people will do a report. They'll put some data loggers on a building for a week and look, here's a report. This is what you need to do. But that's like a point in time, not acceptable in this day and age. We really need to permanently be measuring because things go wrong, problems happen. We need to know and be alerted when things do go wrong. And so what we need to do is use standards, be continuously measuring, and then work out how we respond to these. And of course, as I mentioned before, Neighbours is, I think, one of the great programs in the world. In fact, Neighbours is now in the United Kingdom as well for measuring the last 12 months of outcomes in a facility. And they have all kinds of facilities like office building, data center, hotel, shopping center, residential buildings. They have so many different standards, which is absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, we have real-time apps and audit that we need to do. We can see how many people are going through, a whole lot of things. So it's basically really being able to audit. And as part of ESG, we should be able to contribute to such audits to organizations such as KPMG and other members of the Big Four and beyond, who of course have a global focus. I know KPMG has a global focus on ESG, and in fact we are partnering with them as they white label our service. And so we have audit on procurement process. A lot of people go to procurement and it's the cheapest price wins. As long as you tick the boxes. This is not sustainable. This is not sustainable at all. It should be about the circular economy, and it needs to be about, okay, what's the total cost of ownership over the 10 years, including the use of material, the retirement of the material, how much energy is this going to use, and water and everything else over the period. Then let's look at the cost, not go for the cheapest price, which is just absurd, but it happens 99% of the time. And to me, this is just crazy. And it just means that the whole thing will cost so much more, and it's untenable. And so I think this is really a fundamental thing. Before I finish with this, because I know I do have a limited amount of time, and I can go on for hours. The other thing is, of course, we're moving into an era of EV charging now, as many more people get electric cars. The problem is residential buildings, for example, have not enough power to go around. And so we're starting to work with a number of these organizations to mitigate that and dramatically reduce the power for these, so we can really improve the use and make sure that people have enough to power their EV, the EV chargers for their electric vehicles. So I think this is another growing area we need to be able to make use of, and ensure that we're able to improve this and make it easy for people. So that's all I have today. If you want to contact me anytime, I'll be happy to answer questions other than this forum. Send me an email, contact through Vincent Choi, and I'll be happy to answer your queries. But I'd really appreciate you having me on today. And thank you very much for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much, Bob. I think what you shared just now is just, I think the big picture is, yes, we want to have the carbon zero. And now you literally provide a practical solutions, how we can measure, improve, and deal with those issues. So from that, I congratulate you. You do so well at the forefront of this sector. Thank you so much, Bob. Now this is about the smart building, smart city. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Eugene Lowe.
Hi guys.
Yeah.
Hello everyone.
So Eugene is, you guys see the, you guys see the screens here. So Eugene is an architect, author, and advocate for bamboo. So it's not just using a smart measurements. I think that Eugene, have an interesting topics on bamboo journeys. How can we use a sustainable materials to create the building? Now a bit about Eugene. He's architect, author, advocate for bamboo. He has practiced in England, Malaysia, Australia, and Indonesia for more than 30 years. Over the last 8 years, he has refocused and committed his work towards bamboo design, building, and teaching. So he worked with this organization as a booker in 2015 as a lead architect, and worked with the team to create many bamboo buildings. I'd love to see his presentation in Green School and also in Bali. So his projects are displayed internationally, and I understand that he's a regular teacher and also mentor within the organization in this aspect within the Asia Pacific region. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce and welcome Eugene.
Thank
Eugene,
you,
you're good
Vincent.
to share your screen.
Yeah, thank you, and hello everyone. Just give me a minute. Good to be here with you this morning. Can you see the screen, guys?
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah?
Yep, we can see.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
please go.
So
yeah.
really, this morning, I'm going to share with you some of my bamboo journey. I'm an architect. I work mainly with bamboo nowadays for about 8 years now. Bamboo is an interesting material. It is a grass. There are about 1,500 species of bamboo in the world. And as we know, bamboo thrives in the tropical and subtropical regions. It is a fascinating material. It is not straight. It is like a pipe. There are nodes at every sort of regular intervals. The nodes are not as uniform as steel or as timber, but it is a fairly strong material. And yeah, let me go through how I've used bamboo so far. I started in bamboo as lead architect with a practice called Ibuku. They are premier bamboo practice. And this is based in Bali. So I moved from Melbourne to Bali and really stayed there for almost 7 years. In an environment, as you see here, that is pretty different from a conventional environment. A lot of open buildings, no windows, tropical kind of flavor, and using bamboo all the way. At Ibuku, I made many buildings, almost up to 70 buildings in bamboo, all over, not just in Indonesia, but also in Africa, in the Maldives. We ship bamboo and we built bamboo overseas. But in Indonesia, bamboo is prevalent, like in many tropical countries, and it is convenient to use and easy to use because it's been in the culture for many, many years. I started out on my own in 2018 and started to promote bamboo, building this demonstration pavilion in Kuala Lumpur in 5 days, sharing it, bringing in volunteers to share technology of how to build it, bringing workers from Bali to show how to build in bamboo. This resort was completed in Bali, and we are now doing the second phase with another architect in collaboration. This is actually my own house. This is in Bali, small little bamboo house, which I got to design, to construct, and to live in a house. It's very different when you design a building, but when you get to live in it and experience it and find out how the building moves throughout the seasons is really useful for me as an architect and as an author and as a teacher. There's a lot of layers that I can get from it. A restaurant that we designed in 2020 is now getting there. We are nearly starting construction. This is in Medan for a foundation, the Orangutan Foundation. It is a signature restaurant that we hope will earn money for the foundation to help the orangutan, where tourists will come to eat in this restaurant. This project in Fiji is for a luxury marina, huge boats where the yachts come in to race, and this is a bamboo resort that people come in with a clubhouse and a restaurant, and is about to start construction as well. So another project that we are recently doing is a project in Bali, again for a foundation that supports birds, starlings, the white starling. And this is a cooking school and a restaurant where we combine bamboo and recycled teak. I think one of the ways to promote bamboo is really not just to go full bamboo, but also to figure out ways to combine bamboo with other materials. One other project that we're doing in the Philippines is for this big residential complex. It's got like 7 buildings. Originally, it was all in bamboo, but the owner sort of wanted to change it to steel. But these 2 buildings are proceeding. They are in bamboo. And again, these are about to hit site at the end of the year. So interesting times in bamboo. We're also doing a house, another big house in Bali as well. This one is interesting. It's a Chinese, this guy bought a Chinese house, Chinese timber frame house, and he wanted it reenacted in a different way with bamboo introduced as well. So this is a fairly fascinating project as well. During the pandemic, I had to come back from Bali to Melbourne. And during that time, we started a platform, a bamboo platform. Go to it if you have time. betterbamboobuildings.com. Many bamboo articles, useful ones. There are about 33 articles now that we keep adding. So yeah, if you're interested, have a look. A huge range of articles about bamboo design. In my bamboo journey, yeah, I do a lot of talks. We've started courses, online courses, and now recently in-person courses. There's one happening in Kuala Lumpur in a few weeks' time. We just did one yesterday, modeling with bamboo in Melbourne Uni with some of the architects. So that was really interesting. I get to do, like Bob, I get to do a lot of talks, get invited for talks, and that helps me to spread the word about bamboo, to advocate for bamboo design. One of my aims is really to bring bamboo into conventional and mainstream architecture, to move this material from what many people perceive as the poor man's timber to become a material, a really strong biomaterial. Recently as well, at the end of the pandemic, I finished a book and published it. Bamboo Arc is called, and it's got 30 projects in there, 30 contemporary projects. The book is a compilation, it's a hybrid, almost a hybrid between a coffee table book and a reference book. Here are some pictures of it. Many projects throughout the world. I hope this gives you a flavor of what bamboo architecture is like a snapshot of what it's like now. It's not just small buildings, but some of the buildings you see are pretty meaningful ones. We take buildings, we analyze them in the book, how their structure is, because with bamboo architecture, the structure is the architecture. The structure of bamboo is the architecture. When you take away the roof, you take away the walls, you see how the bamboo is formed, and that's what we do. We analyze some of this. And let me show you 6 projects in the book, right? This is in Vietnam from a very well-known architectural firm, VTN Architects. A bridge in Indonesia, spanning about, I think, 25 meters. This bridge, a car can go over it, fully bamboo. A pavilion in Beijing, again, huge, done by my Italian friend, Mauricio. Another pavilion, an exhibition pavilion in Guangzhou, done by Widi. Widi is also, he worked with me in Ibuku, and he brought all the workers to China, Indonesian workers, to build this as a demonstration pavilion. Architectural mixture in Mexico. This is for a hotel, almost like a shade for all the guests to come through to the beach, done by Jamie, a friend of mine. And a beautiful school hall, music hall, or sports hall rather, in Chiang Mai, done by Marcus. You see this range of bamboo and you think, wow, you know, that it is really something that's really happening. Bamboo is hot around the world. I want to just also come to an end with a project that I'm working on, where bamboo is substituting steel with this group called Epic. Epic is a social enterprise. They have built nearly 200 bamboo houses, or sorry, steel houses, steel frame houses for the Orang Asli, the Aboriginal people in Malaysia. And recently they ran a competition, and we won it, our group won it, to replace the steel with bamboo. This is very exciting for me because bamboo is coming in to replace a conventional material. And recently we had a chance to build the prototype in Kuala Lumpur. We did that in 3 days. And the next step is to actually build a proper house. So that is really exciting for bamboo. So I hope this has given you at least a very brief idea of the journey that I've gone through for the past 8 years, and much more to come, much more to come. Thank you so much. That's it from me, nice and brief, and I'll hang on for questions probably later on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eugene. It's so fascinating. You know, I myself being an architect, you know, to see how what you mentioned, that humble materials can be so creatively used in some smaller scales to a larger scales of building, and the being really versatile in terms of its strength and how it actually, you know, cover during every part of the building, and also and mix with other materials too. I think that is fascinating. I'd love to see your work, you know, coming back to Australia, knowing that you actually practice in Australia, you know, that now you're spreading the work and the word about teaching bamboo in other countries. You know, I hope, you know, this day will also come, you know, when you bring back, you know, your wealth of knowledge in bamboo back to this country. I think it's still relatively new in Australia, but I look forward to this days, you know, then you become like what you mentioned, become a bit more mainstream, you know, in Australia. So thank you so much. The next guest we have, let me do this one. Yep. Now this is another topics altogether, is coming from a very, very different perspective. Now, Anthony Coles, he's a national board member of Australia's China Business Council. topics he has today is Carbon Net Zero Green Channel Program. Now, just the previous two speakers, we see how we can literally practice the carbon zero strategies and actual work of it. Now, let us bring you to a higher level in terms of a policy. We all know that it's all coming from top down. So Anthony will have an insight about how that policies, in terms of the policy level, we deal with the net zero strategies. Now, a bit about Anthony. As I mentioned, he's a national board member with the Australia-China Business Council, the chair of their Net Zero Working Group. He also shared with us that today is the background of this group, the new Green Channel Program, and their milestone new report, highlighting the economic opportunities for Australia from a greater collaboration with China on climate challenge. Without further ado, Anthony, you can share your screen.
Thank you, Vincent. Good to go.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, great to be here. Some great sharing there from from the previous speakers, and really interesting seeing some of that architecture. Spent last time before COVID, I think I spent a few months in Bali and went out to the Green School up there in up in the hills, and some tremendous developments. So as Vincent said, I'm going to be really talking about from an economic point of view of the opportunities for greater collaboration. And I'll just give a bit of my commercial background first. So I actually began doing work up in Asia back in 2007, and actually did some design, permaculture design, which was actually what got me into the sustainability area. My business focus has been in clean tech, so working for a renewable energy sector, originally importing some solar panel and solar PV materials from Korea and Japan and China, and experienced firsthand some of the transformation in the global economics with China's involvement in that. Currently, since 2017, I've been involved with helping Australian clean tech companies access international markets. And as Vincent said, I'm currently on the national board of the Australia-China Business Council. That said, most of my relationships up in China recognise that I'm the one that eats the crab first. So I'm very much, and part of the reason for driving this program through the ACBC was that I saw that there was a lack of understanding and knowledge about what was happening in China. The group that I work with is a very large participant in the innovation ecosystem in China. And with our role here in Australia, we're connecting with that ecosystem globally. I'm particularly active at the moment with partners in Singapore and Malaysia and Thailand. And we just got a note this morning, there's a big event in Bali this morning with a new research institute being established there. The TUS Holdings Group is actually a subsidiary of Tsinghua University. And this is, again, a part of the learning within Australia is to understand what's been happening in China in the last 10 years and the way that they are structuring their industrial transformation and following the high quality economy developments. And so TUS Holdings is involved with incubators and science parks and smart cities and also global networks, as I mentioned, and very active in over 100 cities in China. I work with some of their investment groups, and again, most of their interest has been in the European market and active now in ASEAN markets, and certainly with some of the things we're doing here in Australia, we're hoping to connect with them. The focus and the relevance, to bring that back to today's chat, is that they actually have a whole business unit division, a TUS Energy division. And I've been chatting with one of the founders of their wind team, and he's been really strong on the bamboo application into some clean technology applications. And there's actually been a research report within this Bamboo Rattan Industry Association. So if you click on your WeChat scanning, you can grab hold of that WeChat channel. I also shared with Vincent a little video, which happy to do again after this presentation, which is highlighting some of the research work that TUS Holdings are doing with the applications of bamboo. And really, as was mentioned earlier, that the use of bamboo as a composite material. What I wanted to do was actually share with you a bit more about what TUS Holdings are doing globally in the renewable sector.
China has the most ambitious plans in the world for the development of offshore wind farms to grow its renewable energy industries and deliver its future clean energy needs. To meet this vision, China's TUS Holdings Company Limited and the UK's Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult have come together in a groundbreaking partnership to grow this vital low-carbon industry and bring the most advanced knowledge, equipment and services to the Chinese market. The Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult is the UK's leading innovation centre for offshore renewable energy. With extensive experience in all aspects of offshore renewable energy, it works with many of the world's leading offshore wind companies to develop the next generation of offshore wind turbines and supporting infrastructure and TUS Wind, working in partnership with the Yantai local government, is delivering the Technology Research Centre in the heart of Yantai's High Technology Zone, driving the development of innovative technologies from the UK and China, supporting development and innovation in offshore wind farms in China. Together, the UK's ORE Catapult and TUS from China seek to unlock the world's biggest wind market, introducing the most innovative companies from the UK into China to accelerate the growth of the local offshore wind market and driving world-leading research collaborations to meet the challenges of a low-carbon future.
And I've particularly introduced that because of probably the next speaker, but there's been new legislation introduced into Australia around offshore wind. And this is an example of what the Australia-China Business Council is trying to do, is to bring new knowledge into the Australian market about the opportunity, the economic opportunities for greater collaboration with China. And the key point there is that at the moment, in all of the discussions that are happening, you'll be pretty clear that there's actually not enough engagement with China at the moment. And through our relationships, both through the ACBC and our business relationships, we are looking at ways of actually embedding some of this knowledge and technology participation in Australia. One of the first things that we did as an organisation around this program was a very high-level business-to-business roundtable, and you'll see that we had attendees from Woodside, Rio Tinto, BHP and Fortescue, ANZ Bank, on a call with some of the leading state-owned businesses in China. And what was very obvious with this discussion was that these companies are all very committed already to decarbonisation with all of their investments in Australia. And what we're trying to do is elevate and highlight the opportunities for collaboration today with some of these programs. And so the Green Channel Initiative is exactly that. There's two parts to it. The first is to improve knowledge and understanding. And so the report that I'm going to share today highlights some of the new learnings and the knowledge transfer that we're trying to provide. And by participating in programs like this, just to increase people's consideration for what we could be doing together with China. And then the next step is about action. And so in Victoria, particularly, we're working with provincial government there and their partnerships on the China side, and looking at ways of increasing cross-border collaboration to grow the Australian economy. And we've had some terrific support from the federal government through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and their National Foundation to bring this program to market. So a quick touch on the economics, and what has changed in Australia is our economic dependency on Asia. And when you look at the mix of where that bilateral trade is coming from, you can see very much that it takes the next 5 countries to match what our current bilateral relationship is with China. And so the talk of decoupling and isolating ourselves from this partnership is really short-sighted. And what we're trying to do is to highlight ways for us to re-engage with our partners there on this green climate challenge opportunity. The other reason for it is that there's a huge amount of work to be done. So there's projections for global population to be 10 billion by 2100. And that means more energy demand, more food demand, and more efficient use of our resources. The other key challenge that we've identified in Australia is that we've actually relied too much on our rocks and crops, as we call it, our export commodity market. And we've slipped down the economic complexity ladder. And Australia needs to start considering more than just exporting hydrogen to replace coal, but thinking about participating in the value-add economy. And we use the electric vehicle market as an example of this. Most didn't exist 10 years ago, 50,000 total sales in 2011 to now 6.8 million EVs sold last year. And of course, most of the talk is about China's apparent control of the supply chain. What we are identifying is that this is actually a vision and a strategy executed, seeing where the market was heading, but also highlighting the greater industry opportunities around selling EVs, as opposed to Australia's focus right now, which is about discounts for buying a car. What we're trying to say is if we've got all the mineral resources around the supporting of the battery cells or the manufacturing of the EVs, why aren't we talking about building some of those factories here? Because when you start to understand what the scale and the absolute transformation that's going on within industry, there are plenty of opportunities for Australia to participate in that area. And so for the first 3 or 4 months of this year, we worked on with a partner, Kingwood Mallison Law Firm, with their team here in Australia and overseas. And we did a deep dive into the current policy situation and economic opportunities within 6 key industry sectors. And we talked to a lot of companies here and in China about what they were doing. And what we did with this report was not to just, it wasn't academic, it was economic. And what we were highlighting are the opportunities within each of these sectors and supporting them with some case studies of who was doing what in this market. And what became clear was that people really aren't aware of the scale of energy transformation that has to be undertaken, and that there is huge opportunities for additional manufacturing of solar PV, of wind, and even batteries and EV. There are some fantastic examples of collaborations already. Chengdu-based Tianqi Lithium, which has invested $800 million in the first value-added processing plant for lithium outside of China. And they're looking at all of the other aspects of the green economy to invest. We've also seen, as I mentioned, the opportunity for EV manufacturing. The US, it was just announced last week, some Chinese battery manufacturers investing in Michigan, the Motor City of America. A lot of developments already underway between Australia and China in future fuels. We raised the attention of uranium simply because there's 200 of China's 2,000 coal plants that are going to be replaced by new Gen 4 nuclear reactors. And it's not even on our agenda at the moment. There are some terrific learnings from the Beijing's Green Olympics for our Brisbane 2032 Olympics, for what they did to introduce both the refueling stations and the buses and cars that are being utilising new hydrogen fuel technologies. Again, a fantastic case study out of Melbourne, Decibel Architects that built the Pixel building there, and their involvement in some of the leading edge industrial design and architecture in China that are using some sustainable principles and sustainability right through the supply chain. A lot of opportunities for green finance, particularly in the region here in our ASEAN region. And obviously a big part of Australia's economy is food and agriculture. And we really need to look at what are the opportunities for us, not only opportunities, but also risks in participating in the global economy if we're not addressing our sustainability in our food chain. And as I touched on, my focus is on the technology and investment side. And again, great to see some initiatives here on the panel today, talking about some of those innovations in Australia. And it's certainly an area that we're highlighting where we can collaborate. And so just to wrap up, what we're trying to highlight with this Green Channel program is that, yes, China has changed, but have we? We really are under the influence of a global industrial transformation. A lot of environmental accountability, embracing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we aren't really implementing this within our national strategies yet. We feel that we need to elevate and highlight the opportunities for the green economy with some bold green economic vision, and perhaps position Australia as a regional centre of excellence within the regional comprehensive economic partnership. And as I mentioned, we want to get more Australian companies to participate in global wealth creation around new clean tech and ag tech solutions. And we're involved in the Victorian Clean Tech Cluster with some programs and initiatives in the new year, which will be helping some of that cross-border dialogue. And ultimately, we feel that if we can't collaborate on such a global challenge as the climate challenge, then we really are going to be getting ourselves isolated and in some challenges in other areas as well. And so we're really using this as an opportunity to look at moving the narrative from why China to why not. And certainly areas such as innovations in manufacturing through bamboo and sustainable business practices is an area that we're really keen to work with. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk today. It's a great week of programs. I'll unfortunately can't make some of those sessions later this week, but really keen to keep in touch with anyone who wants to find out more about what we're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you so much. Anthony currently he's in Adelaide, and I think with these online forums, we literally can put the best of the people, together to present the paper. And one thing I do take home from Anthony's presentation is that the word collaboration. I think the task that we are facing is huge. We need to pull the best of the best, from each countries, the resources, that we can, how we can work together and target those areas, ranging, there's the topics that, like what Anthony mentioned, there's so many out there. And I think that is also in terms of what Anthony mentioned, the economics of return and investment. I think there's also vitals for each country. So with that, I really appreciate and thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce the next speaker. Is Ben Anthony. Some similarity, Ben Anthony. Ben Anthony is on renewable green hydrogen projects. The topics that he presents today is the green hydrogen developments and domestic usage. Now, due to the family reasons, he cannot be with us today, but he is very kind that he recorded the presentation. So I'm going to present his paper, on he recorded video. Yeah, do you mind some of the participants, do you mind to mute when we are not, if you can put mute on your phone? Yeah, because I can hear the noise. So I would like to introduce Anthony. Sorry, do you mind to mute because we can't really hear the presentation? Do you mind I ask once again to all the participants to mute your phone or computer, please? Thank you. Yeah, some of the phone is on unmute. Do you mind to check your sound system, please? Otherwise, I can't proceed with the presentation. Do you mind all of you to check, make sure it's all unmute, please? Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, really, someone, maybe I need to lock out some of the people who are not doing the right thing here. If you cannot unmute your phone, do you mind to lock out, please? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think, yeah. I just want to check, make sure everyone is unmute here. Yeah, it will be the best. I think it's, yeah, I just want to double check. Okay, all good. I think I do unmute. I do unmute all the people now. It's all good to go. Sorry, I apologize. I will run this again. I will start this again.
I think you're on mute, Vincent.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Yeah, thank you for Anthony's presentation. I think he touched on resources. How Australia can can ramp up the hydrogen production and give us a much greater independence in terms of the future supplies internally and also internationally. I think that gives you a great insight of what is the future going towards. And obviously, Australia, we are moving on from a traditional coal power resources into a much cleaner energies. I think that Anthony shared what is at the forefront of the situation in Australia. So that's amazing. That's good. Now, now we move on to our last speaker, last but not least, Kathy Ismail. She is an architect. Let me share. Yep, you see that. Let me share screen.
I'll share my screen now.
No, I did you do introduction. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes, yes.
That's right, Kathy. Kathy is so eager to come on board now. Kathy, thank you so much. To join us, being our last presenters here. So she has something quite interesting to share. Being an architect, the topic she will touch on is passive house. Now a bit about Kathy. She's a registered architect in Victoria and director of KIR Architecture. So she's the founder and director of the company. So she has previously several practices in Melbourne and Geelong, and some of the buildings she worked on won multiple industry awards. And her passions in architecture is high quality designs and documentation that could exist in small projects to a large scale projects. Currently, she's designing a $1 million beach house with a big emphasis on low energy and high solar usage. This is amazing. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Kathy. So to you now, please share screen.
Okay, I'll share my screen. So, okay, can everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
Slide.
Yep.
Okay, all right. That's all good. All right, so good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Vincent and the organizer for having me this morning. I am very, very delighted to share what I know about passive house. So a little bit about what we do before we start on passive houses. We are a boutique architecture firm that designs for commercial and residential spaces. We collaborate heavily with the consultants and the clients to get what we want, to get the result that they are happy with. At the moment, we've completed a couple of projects, and I love talking to the client about what they actually wanted. So they are happy with the result. So yeah. All right. So without further ado, I would like to talk about passive house. So basically, I love passive house because I always have this idea that the building should be comfortable for the occupants, no matter what is happening outside. And passive house actually fit that description. You will see how in the next couple of slides. So basically, passive house combines the energy efficiency, thermal comfort, occupant well-being, and it will give you return on investment. Passive house, according to APFA, which is Australian Passive House Association, it is a building standard. Passive house, it's considered the most rigorous voluntary energy and health-based standard in the design construction industry today, resulting in buildings that consume as much as 90% less heating and cooling energy compared to conventional buildings. So what it basically means is passive house is a healthy, sustainable, and economical. Healthy because it will give more comfortable building to its occupants, quieter inside, lower mold risk than normal buildings, and airtight to prevent heat loss. Sustainable in a way that they understood that we can't keep on relying on fossil fuels. So the passive house will actually try to garner their own energy. We always have to do a careful selection of materials during design phases, and lastly to commit to lower the carbon emission of the building, because as we know right now, building industry is one of the largest carbon emission in the world, that contribute to the rising of global temperature. And economical is the part where I think it's the best way to convince people, is that it is an investment, but it pays itself less than 30 years, consumes up to 90% less energy than normal buildings. That means lower bills in the long run. And also right now we have low energy building loans available. So talk to your broker, maybe they can help you out. So before we go on to the technical part of the passive house, a little bit of the history of passive house. So it started by a group of people, but I think the most prominent person in that group is Wolfgang Weiss and Bo Adamson. They started a research corporation in 1988 because they around this 1970s or towards the 80s, there's a big talk about fossil fuels, to rely less on coal and oil and all those things. So they wanted to do a house that can sustain on itself. So the first passive house was built in 1991 in Darmstadt, Germany. It's four dwelling house in one building, as you can see in the picture. And they actually monitor the house. So this is where I think the first presenter, Bob, would be interested in, because there's full documentation of how the house performed since 1991. So we can see that in the long run that it is one of the cheapest way, or not cheapest way, but it is quite cheap to run a passive house in the long run. So that's how the building looks like. And I've included all this image sources or anything that I've taken for this presentation. So you can inquire from me later on if you want more information for all of the things on the presentation. Passive house basically have 5 principles. Number one is the thermal insulation, passive house windows, so high performing windows. We have to put in a mechanical heat recovery unit. We have to ensure the air tightness of the building, and the building has to be thermal breach free to ensure that the heat doesn't get lost as well. So I'll explain a bit more about that. So thermal breach is the minimization of heat loss where construction joints are happening. So it's typical where the building is, so when there's change of materials or change of construction joints, we need to minimize the heat loss in the area. Air tightness is to reduce air leakage and prevention of mold. Heat recovery ventilation unit is the mechanical unit suited for different building types and climate zone. Thermal insulation is to reduce heat loss by placing thermal layer correctly. It doesn't have to be on the outside, can be on the inside, depending on the climate zone. And windows, definitely high performance windows. We don't reckon that single pane units are suitable for this kind of things. All right, so passive house requirements. So in general, internal temperature has to be around 20 to 25 degrees. Relative humidity has to be around 30% to 60%. That is because mold will always try to get into the building if the building's too cold or too less humid or too humid. Minimum temperature in the house is 12.6 degrees Celsius at any point. Minimum air supply, minimum supply air. So we have a requirement of 30 square meter per person per hour. and the HRV unit has to have a more than 75% heat recovery efficiency. So obviously, this is just a general rule, and the rule for each climate zone will differ. Maybe not to extreme extent, but it will differ a fair bit. So as you can see, this graph, this picture actually explains really well of what a passive house would look like. And then certification of passive house. So it's not passive house unless it is passive house. So the passive house standard, these are the things that you need to comply with. Oops, sorry for that. I do not know what happened. Okay. So these are the certification for new builds. So these are the numbers that we have to comply with in a cool temperate climate. So to cool temperate climate is applicable to Melbourne. Those are the numbers. Don't get panicked by that, because someone like myself will help you out. You have to choose you have to work with the certified passive house designer to be able to know all these requirements. So we have 3 different levels for certification: the classic, the plus, and the premium. So if you go to Passive House Institute, you can see the database of all the houses being completed thus far within these 3 ranges. And if you have an old building that you would like to upgrade to passive house, it's called Enviro. So basically you get an existing building, you use different kind of treatment, you consult with your designer, see what you can do about the building. So this is an example that was given in the International Passive House Association website. So you can see that it was the top picture has it's a leaky building. There's a lot of heat loss through everything in the building, not just the windows and the doors. And after, what they've done is they've eliminated the thermal bridges. That means they would have added another layer of thermal insulation outside. Building heat loss is more manageable because it's predictable. You can see the heat loss going through the windows and doors, and even installation of high quality window frames. Windows and frames will help a lot to ensure minimal heat loss. Why I like to promote passive house is because one of the reasons is because of this, the effects of climate change. So global average surface temperature will keep going up, and more so in the past decade. It has been quite worrying. It's a worrying trend, so we don't want the global rising temperature to go up a bit more. I think we have the, I think it was 2030 limit to minimize the heat temperature. So why? Temperature. Rising of global temperature means more consistent weather systems, is more extreme, and making the occupants vulnerable. Passive house is the perfect solution to cater to different types of situation, especially, for example, bushfire requirement, where you can design the external to the bushfire requirement, but the inside will still be comfortable for the occupants. And like I said before, there's more than 30,000 passive house built worldwide, so there are plenty of examples to go to look at. These are some of the literature and references that I've used today. We have the Australian Passive House Association, the Passive House Institute website from Germany. The Passive House resources is a bit more technical, but it's worth diving into that. And the Passive House International database is where you can have a look at all the buildings in all around the world. Smart Plus Academy is great if you want to learn more about passive house. So there's passive house designer, passive house tradesperson. So the tradies can actually learn about how to build a good passive house. And lastly, last but not least, the Box Hill TAFE Institute is a tradesperson course. Yep, so they also have something for tradies. So it's been quite a good movement at the moment in Australia. So we starting to have more and more public buildings Passive House certified. For example, it's one of it's in Glenroy. It's Glenroy Public Library, and I have been there. It's beautiful. It's just ticked all the boxes for Passive House. So you should have a look at Glenroy Library, Community Library. Otherwise, all the private houses are available to be visited around Melbourne. We can chat if you'd like to know more. And that's all for me. I know it's a bit short because I don't know whether I have too many technical slides that I wanted to put in, but I thought we'll keep it skim. We just skim on the surface level today. So yeah, thank you for listening to the presentation. I hope I didn't go too fast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. You know, that I want to thank all the speakers today for the contribution. Obviously, you know, that literally this morning with 1.5 hours, the topics that we cover, just give you a bit of summary, ranging from policy, from the top policies, energy sectors, which is a huge, you know, at the beginning stage, supply, and then we speak about the material itself, bamboo materials, you know, as a low carbon materials. And Kathy just presented, you know, how we can save energies, you know, by using some of the smart technologies and skills from Bob's, you know, the test and measure methods. And what they have done, you know, it's not just we can apply locally. Literally, you know, that principle, what we discussed, can be applied internationally too. And Anthony mentioned, you know, that we are not going to do this alone. We're going to do this collectively with peoples around the globe. So this is obviously we're taking traction and movements, so we can do a much better in terms of carbon zero, not just to talk, but literally put it into the practice. And from that note, you know, I want to thank you, all the presenters. I know there's literally hours and hours of the work behind the scenes, and I understand Bob is not here, and also Ben couldn't be here with us this morning. So if you have any questions for the rest of the presenters, is there someone that you want to ask? You can raise hand, so I will let you speak. While we're waiting for response, I want to ask those people who is interested to join us for the rest of the program. There's QR code here. You can scan and get registered. And for those who is interested on any topics today, either go direct to their website just now in the during the presentation, or you can email us. We're going to upload today's presentation to the YouTube, and there will be links that you can contact us for further information. So if there is any questions, if not, I would like to get all the speakers who still around. Do you mind to show a face? I want to take a photo for all the people involved today. Is someone that you guys can show your face so I can take a good picture of this morning's online forums, you know, that we can conclude this morning's presentation. I think some of the people are left already. Yep, the rest of the people, yep, it's all good. Can the rest of the people can turn on the camera? If someone, can they do it? If not, I will still go ahead to take the snapshot. Big smile. Okay, you get coming in. The rest coming in. Take photo. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so that concludes this morning's online forums. You know, thank you so much. I think I learned a lot, you know, from the presenters, and thank you so much for your time. There is a lot of preparation behind the scenes, I know, you know, but I think, you know, really worth to present, to share your knowledge. A lot of people will be benefits, from what we discussed this morning. Okay, so until next time, I'll see you then. Okay, goodbye.